Hello, everybody, and welcome to EIS Live once again. So happy to have you here today. Before I even say anything at all, I just want to encourage you, if you're watching and you have, of course, yourself, or if you have any friends or loved ones or family members that are struggling, certainly with any kind of drug addiction, alcohol problems, life-controlling issues of any kind, our guest today is going to really have a powerful story of life transformation that's really going to hit home. I'm quite sure about that. So she's just such a great example of full circle redemption and coming fully through that cycle into a brand new life. So yeah, make sure you let all of your friends know, share the link, and maybe Vanessa, can we maybe stick that up somewhere so it can be found quickly again, maybe just to get that out there right now. So like I usually do, I just want to let everybody know what EIS is all about, Emotional Intelligence Solutions. Some of you know who we are, some of you don't. So for the benefit of those who do not, we are a counseling, coaching, and mentoring entity that really, we don't just counsel people and help them fix problems in their life. It's really about discovering who you really are and who you're intended to be, so then you can much more easily discover your why and your purpose in life, becoming the genuine you. And we do that by employing a process that gives you the opportunity to go far enough into your past to uncover broken, unhealed, and undealt with areas that usually prevent us from discovering healthy patterns in life as individuals, in relationships, marriages, business, employment settings, and really helping to deal with the whole person, again, not just fixing certain problems. So we extend this process into leadership development, as we believe leadership starts from within, in the home. It's translated outwardly from there. And it's also not just about being a great problem solver as a leader or decision maker, or even successful in making money. It's a very small part of it, but really developing a heart to lead, desiring to raise others up to be the people that they're called to be, helping instill character, integrity, and accountability, and other hallmarks of genuine leadership, which is hard to do if you don't have that within yourself. So we need to develop those attributes in ourselves first. So we offer a comprehensive approach to personal growth and maturity, from the individual to CEOs in business and everybody in between. And in addition, throughout the broadcast today, you'll see some banners on the screen intermittently on how to connect with us if you desire to do that. And then finally, our live shows are here to feature testimonies like today of people's lives that have been transformed in many ways and that are still on their journey, of course. Other professionals in the field of helping people in similar ways. Some of our EIS staff counselors have also been guests and will continue to be authors of books that we believe are important resources that support the work that we do here at EIS. And then I said finally once, so now I'll say lastly. I won't say finally again because I'd be lying. Lastly, before we get started, I want to remind you that you're welcome to ask questions throughout the broadcast and post them as well as comments, and we'll do our best to answer them near the end of the hour. So before we introduce our special guest, I'll introduce my first guest, who is our guest every week, is Vanessa, our social media czar and technical overseer of these live broadcasts. And here she is, Vanessa Rollo.
Hi,
hey.
Bill.
Welcome back from your conference over the weekend. It must have been awesome.
So good. Just definitely a life-changing weekend. So feeling all the good vibes, radiating all the positivity. So happy to be here with you.
Awesome. Good to have you back.
Yes. I wish you were there with us.
Yeah, I wish I could have been there. I got all these pictures, people sending pictures, and
I know I sent you a picture of the EI Solutions booth all without you, and I felt bad, but I needed you to know that you were missed greatly.
I put my little sad black and white picture back.
You and your little creative emojis.
Yeah. Well, we're in for a good one today for sure. And we, closed out last week's broadcast with the video of Megan, of course. And we got a lot of comments on that. It's a very moving and touching video. And I cry every time I see it, not just because it's a moving and powerful video, but because I've known Megan for quite some time now and go way back, basically not all the way back into her entire life, but into kind of with New York City Relief, finding her out in the streets of New York City in the throes of addiction and just needing hope, to be brought back into her life. So I don't know how many years I've known Megan, but But again, I've been a part of her journey for a while now through addiction, homelessness, hopelessness, and so on, through many, many changes. She worked with us at New York City Relief for a period of time, a good period of time. She came from a place of really complete destitution, and now she's the director of the Hoving Home for Women in New Jersey that helps women in similar situations to reclaim their lives. So again, I just want to remind everybody, if you're watching right now, now's the time to get on the phone or text somebody and let them know that Megan is here to share with us. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce Megan. Hey.
Hi. How are you?
Good. This is the part we pretend we haven't talked like 5 minutes ago.
Sounds good.
But we actually did. So yeah, we've been chatting yesterday and today, but still so thrilled to have you here. And like I said just a few minutes ago when we were chatting, you know, I've known you for a while now. How many years is it now?
11 years.
11? Mm-hmm. But I still don't know your whole story, so I'm just as excited to hear about it all today because I know, you know, the parts from when we met, of course, and how you got found in New York City Relief, like the video showed. Yeah. Love that presentation in the video. Always did. You know, coming out of that subway, you know, kind of out of the darkness of the subway out into the light in the streets, and then you know, discovering New York City Relief. It's just so beautiful. But anyway, I'd like to kind of start us off like we usually do with talking a little bit about your childhood, your upbringing, you know, that part of your life that I think so many people who are going to be watching can really are going to be able to relate to that. All of us grew up in some kind of dysfunction, you know, broken homes that were not healthy. And then, you know, following that pathway, we made our own bad choices that were subsequent to that and so on. So can you frame that out for us a little bit, Megan?
Yeah, so I grew up in the suburbs of New Jersey. From the outside, it could look like it was a perfectly fine family. When I was first born, my parents were getting a divorce, and I went through a ton of abuse as like a young child, and my mom abandoned me. And I lived with my dad and my grandma, who my dad couldn't really even take care of me well because he had his own struggles. Drinking too much, not really knowing how to be a single dad. And every time like I would try to like feel like I was worth love and like I would seek him out, it would always wind up getting like pushed in my face. Like I never was able to get there. And then I was passed around from my family. Again, my mom, like I had some type of relationship with her very early on, but my stepfather abused me and there was no like relationship from that. So she, he's a narcissist and he was controlling her as well. And she chose to be with him and to stay with him. And so I lost my mom at that point. And then being passed around, not really having a home. Every time I would wait for like, you know, my place, I like, you know, feeling as though as I had my own like place and I was wanted, it just never really worked out. I lived with different family members who had children similar in age to me. And it was great that they had, you know, I wasn't homeless as a child, but it was very much felt that I was not their child and I was not wanted, so to speak. So I wound up getting pregnant by 16. And that was, again, not having solid foundation of a father or what a man should be. I had no concept of what it looked like to be loved. So the only thing I knew was, you know, let me try to be loved. So let me do whatever a guy wants me to do to be loved. And once I found out I was pregnant, I just did not want to, I felt that not having a mom, I had no idea how to be a mom, but I knew how not to be. So I wanted to try so hard not to do anything wrong. Like having my first kid at 17, having no clue how to take care of myself, suffering and stuffing down like trauma. Anytime I would bring up like pain from my childhood, I was always told like, oh, there's others that have it worse than you. So it was this like, don't talk about it. Your feelings aren't, important. So I always looked at the things that I had to deal with as I just had to push them to the side and keep going forward. And let's just put on a pretty face and pretend like I'm okay. But really inside, I was just a mess. I had so much anxiety, so much depression. Even to the point when like my oldest daughter was super young, like I couldn't get out of bed. She'd go out and to the kitchen to get me food and drinks. Like I was just so incredibly like miserable and depressed.
Hey, Megan, before you go on,
Yeah.
hold that thought. We talked a little bit last night about, that growing up experience, even before then, I would imagine, and about parental inversion, about having to take care of yourself. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So without having parents and kind of being on my own, and having both my actual parents were like in addict, like in addiction or in some type of just not being adults and taking care of me. I always like would try to take care of my parents and took care of myself. So I learned how to be independent very, very young. And I always just completely did everything on my own. And I think that's why even when I had my daughter so young, like I didn't even want to hear advice on how to do things with her. I was like, nope, she's mine. If I mess it up, I'm gonna, I have to figure it out on my own. And I had, I think, less a fear of failure. Like I was always very determined that I would figure things out because I never knew anything other than that. I only knew like how to figure things out at a very young age, being on my own, having to learn even how to make meals and do things like to take care of myself. And, even now I have to remind myself to check myself that I'm not my parents' parent. Like I have to remember that I have to learn how to honor them and respect them as my parents. And that does not come naturally whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I did really well in a worldly aspect. In high school and I went to college after having my daughter. It again would appear that things were great. I had a great job. I moved out. I was doing really well, but I was so incredibly depressed and didn't know what to do with it. And in high school and in like college in my early 20s, I would drink, I would smoke cigarettes and do like party drugs, and I would be able to just stop. So I always thought, yeah, I could, start and stop anything. I would be tired of how cigarettes smelt, so I would just quit smoking. Whereas everyone else struggled with it. So I was like, oh no, I could just, get by. I could do these things. Until I couldn't. And then I was working at Circuit City. I was the operations manager there, which was for like a 23-year-old, a pretty high position. And I really thought I was fine. Like I had made it. I knew how to, I knew how to stuff all my feelings. People would have never thought on the outside that there was anything really wrong with me. Circuit City went out of business, as most people know, and I lost everything. Like I lost my income, I lost my home, my car, everything, and it in turn wound up having me lose my daughter. And once I lost everything, I looked at myself as I saw myself as I'm no better than my mom, and that was like the worst thing that I could feel, and it brought back all of the 24 years or 23 years of trauma that I experienced, and I couldn't handle it. I had no desire to live. I had no hope. And I'm one of 7, and many of us were heroin addicts. And I went to the one thing that I saw numb so many people around me. And that's when I tried heroin for the first time with the mentality of, oh, I could stop doing things whenever I feel like it. But realistically, that's not how heroin works. And it was the first time that the pain of shame, the pain of carrying these weights of, I can't let anybody know what happened to me. I can't tell anybody. I can't tell anybody that I'm even sad. That was the first time that I didn't feel any of it. And I couldn't, I wanted more of that, not feeling any of that. And that's when I jumped into an addiction really, really hard. I went from doing nothing to shooting heroin within 2 days. So that was.
I think it's important too to point out, you know, when you shared about being depressed, really for so long, and I would even add the word oppressed, you know, on top of that, you know, with the weight and the responsibilities, and definitely coping and hoping, like, I can do this, I can pull this off. And see, parental inversion will do that to you because it's a necessity. Like, you have to do it to survive.
Yeah.
You know? And it really messes with your mind and turns these things around on the inside. But what sounds to me like underneath it, there was a vein of depression that was like a train still running, you know, no matter what you did on the outside, even if you had a job and you were functioning, you know, you were depressed and you really wanted to kill the pain. Like you said, like all that trauma was still in there, right?
Yeah. I used anything in the world to try to fill those holes, like to fill the voids. Like, I was financially successful. I bought myself nice cars. I bought myself nice things. Like, I just was very independent, was able to do things on my own, and taking care of a child and taking care of other family members. And then also, like, whoever I was dating, they were good. Like, I took care, like, I was very much in control without having any control. You know, I was trying to grab onto whatever I felt like I could control because of how out of control I felt inside. And that's when, you know, once everything spiraled and there was no way of me kind of grasping at the straws that already fell, that's when I let go. I had no hope other than, I'm never going to do anything. I'm never going to amount to anything. And no matter, like, and I think that's what, I know that's what I felt deep down. That's why I was trying to, like, prove myself that, oh, if I do these things, then maybe I'll be loved. I'll be lovable. I will be wanted, or, you know, I'll be accepted. And really, no matter what I did, it never was enough. So I always wanted, you know, to be enough to prove that I was going to be worthy. And then once it all fell apart, I was like, okay, it's apart. That's what it is. And let's just numb it. And then I was in my active addiction and I ran after it really, really hard. Everything that I said I would do, started to do, just kept progressing. And then there got to the point where I said, you know, if I cross these lines, I'm never coming back. And that's when the first time that I believe, like, the Lord intervened on my behalf. And I tried to kill myself and I wound up in a psych ward, not knowing where to go. And the first, they called my mom to come and get me. Like, I had no one else would come get me. We called anybody else, and not having a relationship with her, and then seeing her and seeing my abuser with all of this pain still and having nothing, it made it so much worse. Because I had, like, it was, you know, when people say, oh, my rock bottom, that was my rock bottom. I believe that was to the point where I was like, no, this is worse than hell. So there was no turning back from that. And that's when I again tried to kill myself. I went back into a psych ward, and then my dad came and got me, and it just, nothing, like, I couldn't get it together. And I had nowhere to go. And that's when being from New Jersey, and New Jersey, it's suburban. There's not, you know, a lot of resources, especially, I mean, like, that was 11 years ago. Like, there wasn't resources like there is today here. But then I was like, I have nowhere to go. And I didn't even know where to ask for help. I think that was also a big thing for me. I knew I needed help, and I wasn't afraid to ask for help, but I didn't know where to even look for help. And that's when I wound up in New York City. An old supervisor of mine from one of my, because I used to bartend a lot. Facebook has those ways of keeping people connected, but sometimes it's not the best connections. And so I went to New York because he offered me a place to stay temporarily. And I was trying to get clean. I was trying to do the right thing. I went on to like a methadone program, but I had no interest in relationship with him. I was trying to just use this like leg up. And once he realized I wasn't interested in a relationship with him, that's when there was more abuse, more trauma, and pushed me right back into addiction. And that's when I was street homeless for a long time. And that's when I met the bus, who, was the first people I think in my life that looked at me, like actually saw me. And that was one of the most impactful things. Like I share the story of like, there was women there that just had no reason to love me, had no reason to like me, had no reason to have any interest in me, but yet they did. And then even like there's different leadership. Like there's such a profound thing when people remember people's name. And it was one of I think I was going to the bus because it was parked right where the methadone clinic is. And I was going to the bus maybe a couple months, and one of the leaders was outside playing his guitar, and he sang a song with my name in it, like, "Hey, Megan." And I was like, wow, how, like, I met you one time. How do you know my name? And actually are celebrating, singing that I'm here, and it just started to like, what is going on here?
Hey, before you go on again, I got to interrupt. So
Sorry.
just so people can frame out like what the bus means is, which was at the time New York City Relief, and I was with New York City Relief for 27 years. In fact, we have Whitney, who was on, as you saw, who was an intern with us and just a lifelong member, if you will. And I'm sure she was a part of that crowd with Johanna and Katie and all that. But New York City Relief is a mobile outreach to New York City. At the time, it's now called City Relief, I believe. And maybe a little bit of a different focus. And Whitney, by the way, I know you're watching and being a part of this. We're going to have you on soon too. So hold on for that one. We're going to have her come on and talk about her experience too. But yeah, I mean, it's basically a mobile outreach to the poor. We would go to many different areas of the city, the same spots each week, so that we could develop relationships with people. So like Megan, like you knew where to find us. We were always, we believed that we were trying to demonstrate God's faithfulness by showing up, always serving food. Like you said, knowing your name, getting to know people. Definitely not, like a Christian Holy Ghost revival bus, handing out tracts or something like that. We were just very, very down to earth, very, very real people who really genuinely cared with the love of God that was inside of us to really care for people and instill hope, not just give out food.
Yeah.
And so building relationships was always kind of the name of the game with New York City Relief. And so what you're describing, I hope everybody can get a little bit of a context for that now. Like that's what it was really all about. Like anybody can come get a cup of soup and a cup of hot chocolate or lemonade or whatever, and that just fills the belly, but it doesn't fill the heart. And so I think what you're describing is, people actually loved you and recognized you, like you said. And I love what you said too, is celebrated when you would show up.
Yeah.
And I remember that, like the people that I knew when I was out in the streets and I saw them coming down the street, because we'd be praying for everybody who we were working with, and say, we really hope so-and-so shows up today. And we'd rejoice when they would show up, and you were one of those people.
Yeah. It was one of the biggest, like, it was such a pivotal moment of my life. And it's, not to say it lightly, but what really saved my life, because it helped me to see myself. And I really, the relationships that I built there are still the nearest to my heart, the dearest to my heart. There's there's Johanna, Katie, Caitlin. Those are my, those are my heart. Like, I love them. Like, they're my sisters, no matter what. Like, they're all at create, like, one's in Finland, New Zealand, DC. Like, they're all spread out, but it's still they're what God showed me what family is supposed to be. So they would on their days off call me and say, hey, do you want to get lunch? And being homeless, of course I want to go get lunch. And they're like, oh, we'll do a Bible study if you want to go get lunch. Okay, sure, let's read the Bible. What is this, like, that you talk about? And I didn't grow up with any type of faith base. Like, there was no I believed that there was a God, because in my head that made sense, but I always felt like, yeah, he's probably too busy for folks like me, like for people like me who just mess things up. People like the ones at the bus, like he's gonna help them. Like, I never felt like I could enter into that relationship. And they started to show me, no, it's Jesus sat with the people exactly like you, chose to sit with you. And it's the Lord who qualifies and who calls. It's not the world. So it was completely counterculture to what I knew. So yeah, just fast forward, I was walking out of my addiction. I was street drug clean, but I was on methadone, and a very high dose of methadone. And I started to go to church. I remember sleeping in church a lot. Like, it was like the place that I felt the most safe. And I always felt like horrible after the fact, but they're like, no, it's okay. And like always made it better, which was so inspiring to me, because they really exemplified how to love. And that was my example of what real love is. And then the Lord started doing something, and I was like, okay, let me follow what this is. I don't know what this, like, I'm starting to, like, I said the Lord's Prayer. I think I said it the first time because I felt like that's what they wanted me to say. So I was people pleasing. But even at that, God knows our hearts, and it worked anyway. And I started to feel like convictions, and I started to feel like, I'm definitely doing this thing wrong. I'm definitely, like, I started, like, the things that would easily have not, like, I wouldn't have batted an eye at before. I'm like, this is not the right thing to do. I can't manipulate this person. I can't do these things. I can't do it anymore. And then I started to, like, really build on those relationships, and they would come pick me up. I went to Bill's house for Thanksgiving, and they started to invite me into their family, whereas I wasn't even welcome at my own family's. So it was very unique to see, like, these people who are such amazing people, and from my perspective, they've never sinned a day in their life. They've never messed up. They've never even said a curse word. Like, that's how I looked at, Exactly. And when you shared your testimony, that was, like, so powerful for me, because I was like, if he could do it, I can do it for sure.
Absolutely. You ain't kidding.
Yeah, so that was, so inspiring for me. And we just built this, like, actual friendship. It wasn't like I never wanted to share much of my story in the beginning, because I didn't want to feel like a charity case. I didn't want to feel like, oh, you're just here to help me because I'm a project. I never wanted to feel that way. So I had tons of walls, but it wasn't that. It was never that. So the relationships just formed, and it was all the Lord. And then, we were talking the other day about, like, I was still on a high dose of methadone, which it does mess with, like, your decision making and, like, all of that. But the president at the time of the organization, he's like, hey, have you ever thought about being baptized? I was like, yeah, let's do it. This is a great idea. So we went. They were having a staff. And this is, like, the type of organization that it was. Like, they were having their staff time where they had their staff go together and have a staff retreat, and they invited me to go with them and went to the city to pick me up. Not just invited me. They went all the way there to pick me up and bring me. And I got baptized in the Atlantic Ocean. Bill was in the water with me. And then as soon as I got out, I lit up a cigarette, just kind of in my head. Like, it was this, like, that's where I was. But the best part is, like, Jesus met me there no matter what. Like, he didn't care, you know. It wasn't like, and I was able to like authentically be me at that time. Like, I didn't have to try to pretend to be somebody else. I was exactly who I was at that time, and it was okay. And that's when I started to explore, like, oh, maybe I can do this life. Like, maybe I can start to like live this, and there is hope for me, and there is going to be something different. And then I was street homeless, like living outside on the streets. And I was constantly getting into fights, being abused by men. So I wound up trying to get with somebody who they would mess me with. So I dated some guy, and I wound up getting pregnant with my youngest daughter. And the day I found out I was pregnant, I was only 2.5 weeks pregnant. I decided if the Lord gave me another opportunity to be a mom, that I wasn't going to mess it up this time. So I decided against medical advice to quit smoking and to walk off a very high dose of methadone, because they try to keep you on and actually increase your dose as the baby takes it. But I looked at it as, nope, that's not going to happen. And if it does, then okay, then I'll be with the Lord. Like, I didn't have a fear. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. The most painful. When I first went to like prenatal care, I didn't even share it with them because they would have called like Child Protective Services, and like it would have been a mess. So I was still in hiding, not knowing what would happen. And then once I progressed in the pregnancy, and so he left at that point too, because he never wanted another child. So I was again by myself doing this, and I'm stubborn. There was no, like, you couldn't tell me like I couldn't do it. Everything they said I couldn't do, I just kept pushing. And then I had a perfectly healthy little girl. Like, the doctors never had any guesses. She came home to a shelter. We lived in a New York City shelter, which is miserable. It was gross. It was horrible living. But I felt like this was my chance at like fixing things. I started trying to build a relationship with my older daughter, but that was the biggest uphill battle. I faced a lot of opposition. I thought no matter what I did, it was never enough, and I didn't have anything. I was living in a shelter. I had no money. I had no backing. But I kept going, and then a couple years later, the founders of New York City Relief, they heard about my story, and Johanna brought me over to Bill's house for Thanksgiving, and then we went to their house for dessert, and the Lord put on their heart to invite me into their home, to have a beautiful home, a gorgeous home, and they had like a basement apartment with a full kitchen, like everything. And most would say, oh, wow, that's a great opportunity. Did you move in that day? No, I was in school. Even living in the shelter, I was back in school. Now I was completely, like, I detoxed off of methadone, so I was completely clean. The Lord really supernaturally took addiction away from me. I had zero desires to use, and had this different fire. The week that I gave birth to Juliet, we were in church. Like, I just was not letting go of what I found. And once I decided that I would move in, I had to finish the schooling that I was at before I would move in. And then I was worried about like finding, employment and all that. So I was nervous, like I was like, oh man, like I'm going back to New Jersey. That's always been my dream. That's everything I wanted. That's where my daughter is. Like, things are going up, but that's so scary. How is this going to work? As much as I wasn't by myself, because they were fully backing me, I had to see it. So just a little brief part of it was I had owed a lot of child support, so I had a warrant out. And once I moved, I sent the police to my house multiple times, and I wound up getting arrested after living there for 2 days and not knowing these people really much at all. And I had this little girl, and they were right there for me. They came, they got me, I was able to get released. But there was this, like, for the first time, I wasn't trying to figure it out on my own. I wasn't I wasn't like with my back against the wall without anything to do. And I didn't have this like, sure, I still had all the trauma and I still hadn't dealt with it at that point, but I didn't have the depression. I had a different like outlook, like I had hope, which I think is the basis of all transformation is restoring that hope.
Mhm.
And then
Hey, let
I
me throw
wasn't-
it in real quick. And then Ness, if you have anything you want to ask, but you know, that goes. But you were the apple of everybody's eye, but you didn't know it. And I remember that Thanksgiving dinner, and you know, you were hanging out in the kitchen, kind of cleaning up or something, and we were just chatting, and I said, "You have no idea how special you are, do you?" Do you remember me asking you
I
that?
actually fully remember that.
And you went, "No."
Yeah.
You know, and it was just so reflective of you not knowing at all who you really, really were.
Yeah.
And everybody saw it though, like everybody, you know, so when, you know, things, you know, went south for you in all of these areas, everybody was behind you 1,500%, like as courts and everything else that had to be done, car, you know, you name it, everything, because you were just the apple of everybody's eye.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, for me, that's just like a reflection of like the Lord providing those who love you. Like that was what he knew I needed. And I've never experienced love like that. And it was this, I didn't need to, there was nothing, like it wasn't, I knew love is transactional. It wasn't transactional. Like it was just because. And that to me, like, it was so profound. And yeah, I had no idea. I had no idea at all. And I you know, I still am like, oh, man, like, you know, it's still hard to be like, yeah, that's true.
Well, God keeps you humble that way, you know.
Yeah.
He keeps you humble, but you know, at the same time, you can learn how to receive that,
Yeah.
you know. And I think you did gracefully over time because of the humility. And I'm sorry, Ness, did you have anything you wanted to ask? No.
No, I'm just amazed. God is good. I think, Megan, what you said about you being baptized and then lighting up a cigarette and showing up as you were and realizing that you didn't, just because you were on a path of transformation and bettering yourself, so that didn't mean you didn't have to be something you weren't. And I think that's something I could definitely relate to, showing up and working with Bill, for example, and like putting him on a pedestal in the beginning and thinking, wow, I'm so far away. I don't even know if I can like be in his presence.
Yeah, we took care of that right away, didn't we?
Yeah, yes. Like you said, you realize after seeing that they could do it, you definitely could do it too. But I think that's a real thing, like thinking you have to kind of be someone you're not. And that was really powerful, but nothing to ask. Just keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then at that point I was like applying for all different jobs. But I felt like I wasn't, like I was even getting offers, but nothing felt like, yeah, this is what I should do. Like I just moved out of the city and I had job offers in the city, or like it just, nothing made sense. And then it was never the plan for me to work at New York City Relief. That wasn't part of like, hey, move out here and work for us. That was never the goal. That was actually took a month and a half after there, then to even explore that opportunity. And then one of my favorite people ever, Claudia Whittel, she offered me a position as like, let's just see how this works kind of thing. They needed help in the development department, and I needed, you know, to be able to support my child and start the process for court, because I had started it in New York, but I had to continue it for my older daughter. And it just fit. Like it was definitely what the Lord wanted. It was family still. Like it wasn't like, you know, the Lord marked me for ministry. It was something that I couldn't avoid. Like I was there with people who were running after and doing the same thing that I wanted, and it filled me, and it had me just have this hunger and this thirst to know more about the Lord and to know more about like how he does this for people. Because it wasn't like, I knew what he's done for me is possible for everyone. And I was like, okay, how can I share that? Like, how can I get people to see like it's possible for you? Like you can go through the worst things, but there is always hope. There's always something to grab onto. So I worked there in the development department. I started as I don't remember, donor services coordinator, so literally just data. And then I progressed into the development manager, where I was really doing all aspects of fundraising, events, and just tons of things, while still maintaining and being a mom and building myself up. I went, at the time Bill was still there, and we had counseling there, which was amazingly beneficial, because that's what, I got to hear Bill say, just stop it, and just take your thoughts captive to the obedience of Christ. That one I was like, how, Bill, how do I do this? How can you tell me how to do this? But that was when I first started the whole for real healing. And then I continued on with Damali, which I know she's been on here. And that's when I started to see, oh, I'm acting this way because I have this root of an orphan, and I have this root of being a victim, and I have this root that I have to look at in order to be able to develop who I'm really called to be, and who I'm, the way I'm operating is not the way that I'm supposed to be. So I had to do a whole bunch of process there. Just that, yeah, yes, that's literally it. And I just continued just pushing forward, and I found myself into a real, I just relationships, the Lord, what I lacked, what I felt I lacked growing up, the Lord just blew my mind with. I had such solid relationships, and I got to see, one of my favorite things is Richard and Dixie's relationship. I got to see what marriage is intended to be. They love each other, and they take care of each other, and they have this it's the sweetest thing ever. And then I got to see Bill and Stephanie, and just so many people who have these solid, beautiful marriages. And I was like, wow, love isn't transactional. It's not this oh, I have to be something or I have to do something. They're just together, and they had this beautiful partnership. And it started to get me to hope and dream bigger. And then I started, I went to a really great church, and just continued moving forward. And that's where I met my husband. I'm now married, and I met him there. And I never thought that I would get married. That wasn't oh yeah, you want to go get married? Because in my head, relationships were hard. They were just, constantly work. And for me, I was like, no, I can't. I'm just trying to figure out how to take care of myself. I can't do that work too. But I saw it, and I was like, yeah, that's what I want. I want, I know God's perfect plan, and I know the plan for me was to be a mom, but not just a mom, but to be a wife. And how do I do that? Which I had to do a ton of work before I could get there. And then and then we got married. Well, we got engaged. I was still working at New York City Relief. And it's funny. So before we got engaged, I was fighting for my older daughter. And when I say fighting, I mean almost putting on gloves fighting. It was the hardest battle. And I had everyone behind me literally showing up in court to testify that I should have her, and still wasn't getting anywhere. I still wasn't getting to, where I needed to be, to be able to restore that relationship. Her and I, we had our hearts, our relationship was restored, but we weren't living together. And then in July, many years ago, when I got her back, then I got engaged right after that, and stuff started moving fast, and I was like, oh no, hold on, I gotta slow this down. And so I decided to just focus on me and my daughter, slow things down, and just praise God that my husband is so patient and so kind, because he dealt with me being like, nope, we have to just put everything on pause, and put it on pause for almost a year, and still was able to see wow, I am still worthy of love no matter what. And then we did get married, and now we have a beautifully blended family. We have 4 kids, all live with us. He came with 2 boys. I have 2 girls. It's a little Brady bunch. And And I never knew that I needed sons, but I needed sons just as much as I needed my daughters. And it's just been such like a beautiful like testament of like how no matter what we plan for our lives, like if we say yes to the Lord, his plans are better. And if we say yes to healing, like that plan is better. And no matter how hard it is, because it is hard, it's not easy, but it's still like, it's worth it. It's so worth it. And then I guess just to talk a little bit about where I'm at now, we've been married for a couple years. Right before COVID, the Lord put on my heart to stop working at New York City Relief. Never. So anybody who knows me knows New York City Relief saved my life. I never would have thought that in a million years. I was like, no, Lord, you're crazy. That's not going to happen. Like, how do you mean? We have two incomes. I've never had two incomes in my life. Like, this is not, you know, all the things that made sense just didn't. I was like, no, this doesn't make sense. But it was very heavy on my heart to be there with my family and to help my family blend and to show them like they're worth it for me to like fight for them and to sit there with them and figure out how to have sisters and how to have brothers and for me, how to have a husband, you know, and how to have help, because sometimes I have to remind myself that it's okay to be helped. And so once we agreed to that, then right after that, COVID happened and the world shut down. So the Lord had a plan. Like, that's why I had to be able to do homeschooling, because homeschooling 4 kids, going from really like 1 kid to 4 kids in the matter of a couple of years, it's a lot. And it's not like 4 babies, it's teenagers and preteens and all of those emotions. And then I was home for a year, but I've always, my heart has always been for women, because there's not as much for women as there is for men. And women, we need different love. We need different care. We're created differently. And I was always like marked and had this like compassion and this heart for women. And I prayed about it a long time ago that I would love to work with women in recovery or in transitional, like, because I felt like even when I was clean, I still didn't know what to do. I felt like I was like, okay, still haven't arrived. Like, what do I do now? And once it was how this opportunity even happened. It was like, I started to look for work, but then it was like brought to my attention, oh, maybe you should apply for Hoping Home. They're looking for someone, which is crazy because they don't even hire from the outside. You know, they would only hire if you went through their program. But again, when it's meant for you, it's meant for you. And I've been here now 4 or 5 months, which I've just begun. My heart gets to be beautifully broken every day. I get to contend with these women. I get to see this, like, I get to see miracles every single day. I get to see progress. I get to see back steps. I get to see no's. I get to see yeses. And I get to just sit here and fight for them and with them. And it's one of my biggest honors that I could be used the way that, like, the things that were meant to break me and destroy me is now being used to help others that, you know, were in similar situations.
Could you repeat that, please?
What was meant to break me, what was meant to break me and what was, you know, meant to just stuff me out and squash me out, is now being used to lift others up and being used to help those who are in similar situations or just need that hope or need somebody who, you know, is stubborn like I am, that's not going to give up on them. Because many people, especially the ones I get to work with, get the honor of working with, they've felt like they were given up on, and they've given up on themselves, a lot of them. And I know that feeling. I remember it, but I won't let them to even, you know, think about it. They're too precious, you know, and it's such an honor that, you know, even that I'm here, that Hoping Home accepted me here, because as I said, like they really only hire once you go through their program. So it's just been like so ordained that this is where I'm at. And I'm just like super excited of what the Lord has for it and where I'm going with it. And I just, it's when you're in the right seat, you're in, the right seat. And the things that I used to struggle with in different ministry, it was not a struggle here. Like I didn't have to strive for where I'm at. And there's my life, like I'm spoiled. The Lord spoiled. Like, so as you saying, I'm the apple of the eye. Like I fully feel like spoiled. I feel like John, like the favorite, just little thing, like, God is restoring my family, not just me and not my immediate family, but I have a relationship with my extended family now, like actual real relationship, with both my parents too. And like learning how to have them in the best healthy ways. But I love them. Like, and I've, one of the books Bill gave me probably 10 years ago was Choosing Forgiveness. And I chose to forgive them and I really did it. And I like love them and have no, like, I think you said to me, oh, well, when you forgave someone, when they could come into the room and you don't feel that like tingling on your neck or that like, oh, that you know what I'm talking about. And that's, I just want blessings for them now.
And that's why when I introduced you and I put it on the advertisement kind of thing, it was just full circle redemption. Yeah. I love stories of full circle redemption. Like whatever, everything that happened to you, you're providing in a different package to any and every woman who comes in your pathway.
Yeah.
And maybe you didn't go through the hoving process, but you went through the process.
Yeah.
The God's process to get you to a place where, you could be in that position and be able to give back exactly what was given to you, and, like you said, that hope, that understanding that, you are special, that you do have purpose, that you are loved, you are lovable, and all these things. Mm-hmm. And like you said, women are built differently than men. Obviously, they need special, caring. And who's better, more equipped than a wounded healer, who's lived through all of that and received all of that. You're going to say to these women, do you know how special you are? Like I said to you that day on Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. When they walk in the door, and maybe they won't see it, but maybe by the time they go through the whole program, they'll go, yeah, I'm starting to see that now.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I forgot you said that, but that is something I say regularly. And like, I can look at people and say, I really love you. Like, I really, really love you and mean it, Mm-hmm.
I think there's at least one question there, right, Ness?
Yes, I'm getting teary-eyed. But someone asked, what approach can you recommend to help a family member who is battling addiction?
I would say, well, for like most people, I would recommend help. Like I would recommend a program. If it's a woman, you could absolutely call me at any time. I would love to be able to get them into our program here in New Jersey. If it's a man, I would recommend like a teen challenge or like a faith-based program that way. But loving them, but also knowing that you can't enable them. You really can't. Like I think one of the easiest things to do is to enable, to continue to provide, to kind of cover things up. But that's just going to hurt them more in the long run. If they're an adult, they know they're making these poor decisions, and you have to kind of, I don't want to say tough love, but sometimes they need tough love, and they need that, you need to go and get help. I love you. I will be praying, and I'll be, following up and making sure that you're okay, but you need to get help. I wouldn't, I don't ever recommend people, do things on their own. I don't, even was I living on my own? Yes, but I still had active, counseling. I was in church. I had small groups. I had people who I was very honest and vulnerable with. I didn't do it on my own. And realistically, if I had known and had the opportunity to have the comfort of a program, I absolutely would have done it.
Yeah, and I think it's important to point out that there's as many stories as there are people on the planet, of different scenarios and situations that people find themselves in. That, like you said, the key is don't lean on your own understanding and try to come up with your own plan. Reach out to somebody. Even just talking to you, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to go through that avenue. Right. But you can lend some support and advice into that for them as well, just as much as EIS can do the same thing. Just get some information, talk about your particular life situation, a loved one or a friend or whatever, and what kind of problem they're encountering and all of that. But bottom line is, yeah, there's lots of help out there. And you didn't know, like you said earlier on, you didn't know that there was the things that were out there were even out there, and most people don't.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Especially the faith-based,
what was that?
especially the faith-based avenue. You know, there's such great programs like the Hoving Home that I have a long history with. You know, over many, many, many years. It's just such a tremendous, just like Teen Challenge. And they do so much different and better of a work than most secular, you know, kind of rehabs.
And the recovery rate, like the non-relapse rate, is higher for a reason. Like it's harder. It's a much harder program than a secular program, because to have real life transformation, you have to do the hard work, you know. And I think my favorite thing that I get to share with the ladies here is the goal isn't sobriety. It's not just to keep you sober. It's life transformation. Like that's, you know, it's not just, oh, let me figure out how to keep you clean or sober. It's let's keep you that way and show you there's a whole life.
Well, if you can get clean and sober, then you're a candidate for the rest.
Amen. Yep.
You know, and if you stay using, then you're going to pretty much negate your candidacy, at least for those moments. And you never know if you're going to come back either. You know, you never know when that last one is going to get you, you know, out there. But, you know, when I quit, you know, I'm 68, so it's 38 years ago. I remember it was a life and death situation for me. It was just like, if I go back, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
You know, I'll either kill somebody else or I'll die, or both are going to happen, you know. And that's called hitting bottom, like reaching your bottom, you know, and getting to that place where, and hopelessness and despair really just like consume you.
Yeah.
There's hope. You know, there's hope. We just have to, you know, reach out for it. I know we talked earlier about, in the final moments here, some books. Funny, nobody really asked about the books today, but we're gonna put them up anyway. Vanessa's gonna do that. She's gonna put them in the comments section right now. These are books that Megan has read and recommends.
Also, Megan, I know we spoke a bit, just so you don't forget, if you want to talk a bit about the gala that's coming up for Hoving Home,
yeah,
put that information in the chat as well. Not chat, comments.
Yes. So me being here for a couple months, we're having our first, well, not our first, my first with Hoving Home Gala, which is going to be September 11th in New Jersey in Somerset at the Palace. She's going to put a link if you wanted to get tickets. I'd love to see you there. I'd love to meet you. I would love to share just what our future and vision for Hoving Home is going to be. But yeah, I would love to just share with you what's happening here and just to see how that partnership could develop. And the books that I recommended were, yes, Choosing Forgiveness, Dance, Stand, Run, and Uninvited. Those three were the most impactful in the beginning of my journey. So yeah, those are the ones that I recommended.
And the book of the week this week is going to be One Lady at a Time, which is the story of it's called the Hoving Home now, but the book is probably still called The Story of the Walter Hoving Home, just for the sake, if you go on Amazon or something to try to find it, by John Benton. It was John and Elsie Benton who founded the program, I don't know how many years ago. I think the first one was up in Garrison, I'm pretty sure, in New York.
Yeah.
And there's actually one out here in Pasadena, and one in Las Vegas, and now one in New Jersey, right?
Yes, and we actually have another one in New York, which is the first Women and Children's program. So
nice.
And like, you know, kids are my heart. So that program I'm just super excited about. So there's 5 programs in total.
And how can people reach out to you directly? Is there something we could put up there? Like, can they go to the website, for example?
Yeah. So on the website, there's a bio. I think my email might be on there, or social media. Megan Cali is probably the easiest, but you'll probably see many pictures of my family. That's primarily what I share on social media. But if you wanted to email me, it's mcali, CALI, @hovinghome.org.
Wow. I did look at this. Look who's here. Hey, Beth.
So cool. Hi, Beth.
Beth is the director, I guess, of all.
Yeah, she's the president CEO.
Mm-hmm. Well, praise God.
Amen.
I just put, Megan, your information on the Hoving Home website, which is what Bill had sent me. So that's there. And I think you have your information there as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Well, I mean, if this isn't an encouragement to anybody who's struggling in any way out there, and of course, I know you personally and didn't just hear your story today. So I've been through a lot of those struggles with you and a lot of those victories too. I think one of the things, just to kind of to wrap things up with, that I recognized about you, Megan, is and you may or may not remember this too. There was one day you came down the hallway and we had a broken office chair. And you sat down. It was like, I don't know, it was like it broke and it was almost down to the ground. And you were just like a little kid, like pushing yourself along the floor, like laughing your brains out.
It was so fun.
And I'll never forget that, because at that moment, it was kind of a snapshot of the joy that you carry with you in this new life that you've moved into, and it's so refreshing and so wonderful. And I know that, you're bringing that to all the ladies that you're working with now, and your family and anybody that you encounter. So I can't thank you enough. My tears are starting to well up. So
thank you, Bill. No, I'm so honored that you invited me onto your show here.
Ness, any closing remarks? She left. Uh-oh. Well, I guess she didn't have any closing remarks. She probably, either her phone died or something happened.
Yeah.
Well, there she is. Let's give her another shot at it.
I messed up. Were you waiting for the catchphrase?
No, I was asking you if there's any closing thoughts from you.
Just thank you so much for sharing your story. There's so many things that you spoke to that I related to that inspire me. And I just feel your heart through the screen, and I just really appreciate it. And like everyone in the comments is saying, this was just an amazing one. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I usually mention this at the onset of the program, but, Vanessa's 21 years old, and she represents a constituency of a lot of people her age and young 20s and maybe up to early 30s in the business that we cater to. And I'm just so happy and blessed that they got to hear your story today. And even if there's not that many people who tune in today, what we see is that people share this video. And we usually have quite a few shares, and a lot of people, kind of watch it after the fact. So you're probably going to get some emails, and people are going to be reaching out to you. And then Whitney, thank you for tuning in. Again, we'll have Whitney come on soon too, and that's going to be a blast.
It is.
Lots of fun. So, but for now, we're going to have to close out. And again, thank you, Megan. Thank you, Vanessa. And we have a special guest next week that I'm keeping a secret. Ooh. So, we'll see you all next week.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.